Thank you, Sean, for having me on the Next Level Call. My name is Matt Smith, and I've got a variety of topics that's going to help you today. We're going to switch gears a little bit. Usually we're covering some nuts and bolts. I want to take a step outside of the business and give you some things to think about, whether it's on the phone or in the home, that you can start to implement, because I know that this is a thinking person's game and we can all evolve and get better as the time goes on. The one thing that I want to make sure you do before we get started though, Mike Sizer and I were talking about this, if you could just start pounding the like button, pound the like button, make some comments, share it with your friends, it could change your business. Last time that I was on the Next Level Call, I did the exact same thing. And I have a tremendous person in licensing, for example, just got licensed, just passed his test. And what if he makes 6 figures for his family and he changes his life and I'm able to help him do that? That's a win-win. So the reason why your business is so small is we're not sharing this with your whole network of friends and family and connections that you have. So like and share it with Facebook, get us out there. We're expanding, we're growing, and we want everybody to be a part of it. So the first thing I'm going to do is I'm going to talk to you about people skills. There's going to be 20 different people skills that we discuss. I'm going to break it into 2 segments of 10, and your job is to grab a pen, and I only really want you to focus on 2 of these 10 and 2 of the next 10 that you can look at and say, you know what, Matt, I need to improve. That's an area I need to improve. Anytime I look at myself and look at some of these things that I need to work on, it is a reminder on areas that can help improve your business. Because I know one thing, we all can get better. So starting with people skills, the first one that I would say is important, this is not in a specific order, is your ability to relate to others. So you have to know how to build value with you, your product, your service. That's very important, but you also need to understand if you're meeting with a doctor or a physician or the blue collar or the white collar or a topic in religion or a topic in business or work related things, you need to be able to relate with others, because at the end of the core of sales, you need to be likable. Being likable is where you're going to be able to relate with others. So your ability to maybe agree or disagree with like a mutual respect is very important when we're talking about relating with others. The next thing is you have to have strong communication skills. So everybody loves to hear their names. When Sean Mike started this call, he was going through names, correct? So everybody likes to hear their name. So make sure you take the focus off of you as the producer and focus on them as the client. And you got to understand, people's favorite word to hear is their name. So if you can show that to them, that's extremely important. So put them in the middle of the sale. I'll never forget, like when I first started this business a decade ago, I was sitting with a client and I was talking about my young 2-year-old daughter at the time, and I was showing pictures of my daughter to the client, and all of a sudden he said, really, let me show you pictures of my granddaughters because they're beautiful too. And I realized, what am I doing? Like, I'm making this about me, not them. I'm so excited about want to share something about my daughter. They don't care about me and my family. I'm here for them. So you got to have some self-awareness and understand that you need to put them in the picture because they need to know that you genuinely have care for them. So make sure that you're putting them in the middle of the picture. Patience with others. So as a sales producer, we're always going to be tested with different personalities, different situations. So when you're under stress, the way that you deal with it is going to really determine whether you can dictate and get a sale or not, because you're going to meet people, and we'll talk about that later on in this presentation. You're going to meet different types of personality types where they're going to try to push your buttons, and your job is to not bring the emotion into the sale from your standpoint. We'll talk about emotion later and how it's affected in the sale, but you can't get emotional based off of them pushing your button. So just be patient, understand that it's a part of the process, and work through it with your clients. The next one is your ability to earn your clients' trust. So obviously without trust, can't get a sale. And we'll talk about this as well, but you've got to talk about you, your product, your company, and how you're different from everyone else. That's the best way that you can really increase the value and make sure that they trust you as an individual. Knowing when to show empathy is extremely important. So you need to make sure that you can put yourself in your client's shoes, because once you do that and they understand that you're doing that, they're going to see a lot more value in you, because then they know that you understand their circumstances. Let me give you a good example of a scenario that I did this week. So I sat down with a client, and inside of the financial inventory, I started to talk to them about their jobs and their income, etc. And the wife said, yeah, I'm actually, my contract is ending and I make $83,000 and my contract ends and I will not have a job in 3 months. And we are concerned about that. So I took the approach of selling the bread earner, the husband at the time, a policy. I put a joint accidental death policy on him as well. But I didn't cover her because she actually had some current life insurance that was permanent already. And I said, listen, because I'm conscious of your budget, because it's coming up here, let's stay within your budget right now that we know you can afford based off of his income versus both your income, because the last thing I need is in 3 months you not to be able to afford it. So let's wait till we know exactly what you're doing, and then we'll get another policy on you. Does that make sense, Mary? Yes, it does. So it was able to see I'm not all about my commission and why I'm here, etc. I was able to put myself in their shoes and say, okay, if I had a spouse that was losing their job, pretty significant amount of income, the husband really wanted to be covered, so we took care of that, put a joint policy on him for some accidental death as well, so we're walking out with multiple policies. But still, I was able to really earn their trust by saying, hey, I understand what you're dealing with. Here's the process that we'll take. I'm your agent for life. I'm going to be here. I have no problem with, give me a call here in about 3 to 6 months and we'll put something together based off of what your new job is. Does that make sense? Yes. Right now, we're going to take care of this. So showing empathy is a big part of sales, and take a look at that as well. So you also have to have active listening skills. So active listening skills is the best way to build rapport. I think I'm going to spend a little bit of time on this because this is important. So some of you, especially newer agents, what I see that spends hours in the house, 2 hours in the house, you think rapport is spending 30 minutes talking about their fishing trip. That is not rapport. That's where you're going wrong, and that is where you lose control. So you've got to understand a couple things. First of all, people are going to judge you off your appearance in the first 4 to 7 seconds. So this is where rapport starts. So if they view you as a weak individual, they're going to try to take control of the circumstance, say, just give me the price. I filled this out for information. And if you don't show them that you're in control of the circumstances and you're the person with all the knowledge, experience, etc., you'll lose control. You'll lose the sale right off the bat. With active listening skills, it's the best way to have control, and it's the best way to build rapport, because here's what I'd say. Many of you, I've done this too, I've done it both ways. I think the most effective way to build rapport is during financial inventory. While you're taking and gathering all that personal information from your client, those are when easy questions can start to come out and rapport is more natural. The problem with some of you is when you start to build rapport in the beginning of the conversation, it's not genuine. You're asking maybe very generic questions that don't matter. You can start to ask better questions about their job, where they met, who asked who out first, scenarios like that inside of gathering that personal information. And here's how rapport works. It works with that nonverbal communication. You'll say, yes, okay, that makes sense. Once you start giving them the, yes, okay, great, that makes sense. That active listening skills, where there's a big difference between hearing, right, and listening. So what you need to do is stop, listen to what your clients are saying, and then reply. And reply with making sure that you understand that you're on target with what they're saying. Because if you're just like, yeah, okay, and you're writing it down and you, yeah, and you don't really show any sort of interest, there will be no rapport. And without those simple, basic things of rapport, you will not get the sale. So make sure that you're engaging with your client with rapport, saying, that makes sense. Okay, yeah. Oh, where'd you meet? Oh, yeah. All those things, because those are the small wins that maybe you're not doing. Because what will happen is when you get outside of that financial inventory, and it's time to talk about the product and how it's going to make sense, they're already sold because they already know that you're an expert. They already know that you care about them. So this is that rapport is such a big deal, and knowing when to do it, you do it at the same time inside the financial inventory. You don't have to come in and feel awkward with people skills in the middle of the house unless it's just a natural scenario. Sometimes you're going to click with people and it's just going to be natural, and it's okay. So I'm not saying there's a finite, definite formula that you have to follow. I would just recommend rapport building is better off when after you set the table, you talk to them and you're gathering information inside the financial inventory, and make sure you're engaging and let them know that you're interested in making it about them, etc. So that's super important as well. Next thing is genuine interest in others. So I've met so many people where they're like, man, I'm terrible at remembering names. If you're terrible at remembering names with your clients, you're going to lose once again. And what I mean by this is you got to remember names. You got to remember dates. You got to remember significant things that have happened with them. And then you need to repeat it to them, because that's the way they'll know you care. So what I've seen happen in sales is people will say, man, I'm really bad, especially when you're running multiple appointments. Like, the thing I really, really focus on is making sure I know John and Mary's name the whole time, and making sure I'm calling them by John and Mary the entire time. Because those, once again, everything adds up. It's super important. The worst thing is when you call them by the wrong name, or when you forgot their name and you can't use it. So these are small things. They seem like, it's no big deal. We need to talk about it all. I'm trying to talk about it all. I'm trying to break down all the little stuff for you today, not because this is a complicated sale. I'm just trying to give you a step back, give you more of a 10,000 foot view of sales, and let you know what works and what doesn't work. And maybe you need to identify a few things and say, okay, I'm going to implement that. I'm going to try that next time I'm in the field. So remembering dates. I got rescheduled on the previous week with a client. And when I went back, I said, I remember you told me you went to Evergreen High School, right? He's like, oh yeah, you remember that? Yeah. He said, and when we were rescheduling, because he lived close to my parents' house, etc., where I grew up, and we just got into a conversation about where we went to high school, etc. And he's like, yeah, I went to high school, and yeah, you said all your kids are out of your house, and it's just you and your spouse right now, and you're gathering a bunch of toys and all this stuff, and you just bought that motorcycle. And you bought that truck. How'd your truck purchase go? So I had genuine rapport when I went back and met with that client, and let me tell you something, they both bought. You know what I mean? So that's remembering names and dates and important things from your clients. They will know you care, and it will set you apart from the competition. The competition doesn't do it like us, I promise you. So make sure that you're setting yourself apart as well. So flexibility. You need to have flexibility inside of different topics that will come up, because what will happen is clients will get you off track. And your job is to stay on track for time's sake, for structure and control. So you need to have the flexibility to talk about whatever topic comes up, but you also need to make sure that you get back to the course, because again, rapport is not talking for 10 minutes at a time or 30 minutes at a time about their hobby or their favorite or their truck or whatever. Rapport is acknowledge it. Hey, that's a nice new truck. Yeah, I like it. That thing's sweet. So anyways, where do you work currently? You see what I'm saying? It's like you get back into control. It's such a big deal, but you've got to be flexible. So if something gets thrown at you, your game isn't thrown off and you don't know how to respond. So being flexible is a big thing as well. So good judgment. This comes from usually your gut feeling. The best example that I can give you for good judgment in pertains to insurance sales. A lot of new people fail at this. Is underwriting. If a client is not eligible for a product, make sure that you are not going to offer them something that they can't get. A lot of times, salespeople will come in and they'll say, hey, I made this sale and they're not eligible. They could get maybe a final expense product would have been better versus maybe a mortgage protection product that they weren't eligible for. So as a producer, if you feel like they can't get qualified, go with what you think they can actually get qualified for, because I see that mistake time and time again. For example, if they're a oral diabetic and they're over a 7.0 on their H1AC, they're probably going to be a final expense client because it won't be accepted for simplified issue in most cases. I'm using that example. So understand how underwriting works, understand how important it is to call your upline, call your manager while you're in the house if you have a health scenario that you're not familiar with. And I think you'll find it better off. But use your gut feeling and you'll know how to translate that as well. Ability to persuade others. The ability to persuade others really comes down to one important thing, and that is your belief. And I'm gonna cover certainty later on in this topic, but in order for you to persuade someone, they have to know that you believe in the product, you believe in the company, you believe it's the best thing from them, and we'll talk about that and how that works here in a few minutes. So here is the group of the last 10 that I want you to focus on and look at, and maybe take 2 of them from the first little session, 2 here, take a look at them, implement it, see if it works for you, and I think you'll find some good results in the house. You need to first look at your negotiating skills. So a lot of times when we're doing top-down selling, the way that you are able to navigate through the sale, the way that you are able to get something versus nothing at all is extremely important. Let me give you an example. So a lot of times we'll sit down with a client that maybe wants their mortgage protected for the entire amount, but we can only sell them a final expense policy. Your ability to build value in small face amounts to those older clients to make sure that they have enough time to make some good financial decisions, whether they reverse the mortgage, whether they make payments and pull the equity out of the house, whether they use it as a down payment or refinance, you're giving them options versus nothing at all. So a lot of times when you're doing your top-down selling, sometimes you've got to realize that you're going to scrape them off the wall. Maybe the price is extremely too high. But if you do a proper financial inventory, you should have a pretty good feeling on what the top-down should look like, if that makes sense. But in order for you to get better at this job, you need to make sure to be able to sell those smaller face amounts and have some extreme success there as well. The next thing that I would say is your ability to keep an open mind. So in order to get trust with others, they need to make sure that their viewpoint and whatever their thoughts are being considered by you. The worst thing that you can do in a sales environment is not really listen to the clients, not have that empathy that we spoke about, where you put yourself in their shoes and you're able to do something with it, but you literally just don't see their point of view, you would completely ignore it, and then you press your agenda on them. How you are able to build a lot of trust and a lot of value with clients is when they see that point of view has been considered, and you can show them, even if it's off of their opinion, you can show them why it makes financial sense to why you're showing them the products and services that we're going over. So that's extremely important. Hey, here's my secret weapon, is a sense of humor. So this goes back to out of college. My family owns the world's largest Dodge Chrysler dealership, and I did F&I there for the first 8 years. I was the #1 F&I guy in the country for 7 years in a row. And I remember there I was working with a lot of real good closers, better than me, I would say. They had the right word tracks, they had the right, they could overcome any objection. They were maybe smoother than I was, etc. But I was closing and collecting a lot more premium than they were. And one of the reasons why I would attribute to that is I would always get people to relax with saying some maybe self-deprecating jokes or have a sense of humor, because if you can inject humor into it, it releases that tension to the buyer, and all of a sudden they're relaxed, they're easy to make a buying decision. I would tell you, now don't get goofy, don't be a goofball, but you need to understand that if you can get that humor into your closing, you're better off that way, and I think you'll find people are relaxed and they'll make that buying decision, and you're a little more likable. And you've got to also have enough of ability to say, okay, I'm not being funny right now, and so you got to be aware of all circumstances and all different types of people, but you're better off with it than without. Honesty, obviously, if you're going to have any sort of trust, you need to make sure and be honest with your clients. I think one piece of advice I could use in having trust with you, like for example, I have that Insurance Drip account where I pull up my page and I show them my recommendations, all the clients that have recommended me. I show them my actual license, so they see that I'm a licensed producer in the state that I'm doing business in. They see that I've got my own unique website. That builds a lot of trust, shows a lot of honesty, shows the companies that I do business with. So if you don't have a tool, check out insurancedrip.com because it's really inexpensive for Family First Life agents anyways. But that's a great way to make sure that you're letting your clients know who you are, where your office is. It's just another form of being legitimate inside of our business, and I'd highly recommend it. Awareness of your body language. So, your gestures, your voice, your appearance. We're always, being judged for our looks, etc. So just be aware. What are you wearing? Do you look, presentable? Do you have a Family First Life polo? Do you have a decent pair of, nice shoes? I will wear jeans, nice jeans to appointments. I would go up from there if that makes sense. But as long as I feel presentable and confident, and making sure that, a lot of sales is just the projection of and the transfer of enthusiasm. So how your awareness of even your body language inside of that is extremely important too. So just be aware of maybe, you need to brush your teeth more, or floss, or I don't know, breath, right? All the above, going into people's house because you're in close counters. So you don't want to turn someone off and lose a sale based off of just, your body language alone, because that's how we communicate more than even our words ourselves. The next thing it would be is your proactive problem-solving skills. So this will come into account where maybe I'll give you a good example. Maybe someone's super unhealthy, but they have a significant amount of money set aside. Well, it probably doesn't make sense to show them a final expense policy for 20 grand because they've got $1 million saved away. So you need to be proactive and understand, okay, this is one of the sales where I'm going to pivot. So your ability to pivot to another product and build value in that is extremely important. We have plenty of training videos out there in regards to annuities. We have an annuities section that you can focus on every single next level call as well. So your ability to pivot into another sale when there is an opportunity. Maybe someone's doing a full 401k, but they only get a 5% match. So the first thing you could do is maybe take the money that they're not getting a match on and look at an IUL. Those are some proactive problem-solving skills that you need to be aware of to really generate more business for yourself. Your leadership skills. What example are you setting for yourself? I'll be the first one to tell you that I think leadership can be very hard. I think Sean Mike does a tremendous job of using examples of you. When it comes to being a leader, you're not going to have 9 different personalities. So you're not a chameleon when you're a leader. It's a bad idea, right? But like what Sean does a really good job of is we can all relate to a part of Sean to get us motivated and moving in the right direction. That is a sign of a good leader. So good work, Sean Mike, on that. So those are examples of leadership skills that, I'm continually working on, that you need to work on, because at some point, whether you're a leader in their household, or you're a leader, leadership is going to come into play, especially if you're going to have an agency, build it properly. People are going to be looking to you for results, for answers, and you need to be able to motivate them in the right way. So the next thing would be just good manners. This is simple. Are you a person that asks to take off your shoes when you come into a client's house? Do you say please? Do you say thank you? Those people skills are extremely important. So stuff that your mom and dad hopefully taught you, or whoever raised you taught you, hopefully. But having good manners, people like that. So make sure that you're thank you, sir, ma'am, etc. That's extremely important. Well, so your ability to be supportive and motivate others. Now this is more leadership scenarios as well, but one of the most important aspects that you can be for an agent in this business is when things aren't going their way, sometimes people just want to be heard. Meaning sometimes now you're not a counselor. Don't waste time. We don't have time to be a counselor. I get it. But sometimes people need 2 minutes to vent. I don't know. So your ability to then get them motivated and moving in the right direction is extremely important. And talk them off the ledge, whatever. People go through sales cycles all the time. They're going to have peaks and valleys. Idea is just to stay in the middle. But we know with sales, it's extremely emotional type scenario, because one minute you're going to retire, the next minute you're going to go hungry. So unless you stay emotionally stable, then you're going to have to play some supportive roles. And a lot of times people want to be told that they're doing a good job, even though they might not feel like they're doing their best. So playing that role is extremely important as you start to build your agency and help other people get what they want. Knowing your audience, so knowing the right thing to say at the right time is extremely important. A lot of times you could kill a sale that maybe was already done by continually talking too much. So having the right time where you need to just shut up and close is extremely important. So pay attention and know your audience. You might offend someone based off of their beliefs or things like that. So you got to know your audience, right? Know what to say, what not to say. Be careful of that. So out of those 20 people skills, I hope you took a few of them where you can grow on, because I think it's all sales at the end of the day. I think it all helps you relate to it. I'm going to go ahead and move into the top 5 reasons what you need to have in every single house. And I'm also going to talk to you about types of buyers next. So now that your people skills are wrapped up, I'm going to talk to you about your types of buyers that you're going to meet in the house and how to approach them and how to close them in a short time period here. The first thing is you're going to meet a lot of practical people. I'm going to make some general statements about different age groups and lump them in, because there's always exceptions to every rule. I understand that, but most practical people are millennials. So when you meet a millennial, generally speaking, they want to shop. They want to look around. They want to take their time in the buying decision. So how do we get someone that's practical to do business with us? They need to understand that we represent multiple A-rated insurance companies, that we're able to do the shopping for us, that you can't mark up insurance, it's all regulated by the state, and then your job is to make sure the value prop exceeds the price, and we'll future pace. We'll talk about this here in a second, but we'll future pace, and we'll be able to close people as well. The next person is, and a lot of new people really struggle with this person, is the person of action. So a lot of times when you sit down with a client, they're going to say, hey, I just want the information, give it to me right now. That's fine. I'll give it to you right now. It just takes me 10 or 15 minutes. I need 3 minutes to ask you some financial questions, 2 minutes about your health, and maybe take me 10 minutes to explain the different options to you, and we'll go through this with you. So just because they're a person of action doesn't mean that you don't do every single step in the sale. It just means that you don't have to build a lot of rapport with them. And by the way, I'm still going to build rapport inside the financial inventory, or at least attempt to. But sometimes rapport isn't necessary to get their business. They just want to be done. They probably sat with someone for 2 hours before and don't want to do it again. So they're ready for action or get out of the house, and that's okay. So don't worry about people of action. You're going to meet plenty of them as well. The next one is you're going to meet a lot of people that are social. These people are generally baby boomers. They like to talk. And this is where you can't be off that rapport scenario where you're talking to people for 30 minutes about their fishing habits or their fishing hobby or their latest car collection or whatever it is. That is not rapport. So social people, you need to have a connection with them in order to close, but that's it. You don't need to get too far off track. So just understand when they're social, they want to be your friend, but you can't get too close to them, because then it's too easy to tell a friend no. So you got to stay in business with those social clients. The next thing is you're going to meet a lot of people that are emotional. Now, I've said this in the past, but really 95% of a buying decision is emotional. So people say that they're logical, they say that they're practical, but with the right type of emotion, they will buy. So generally, these are the easiest people to sell, but you can also have negative emotions towards what we're offering and positive emotions. Just understand that. So make sure whichever direction that you're using, that you need to paint a picture in the future on how this life insurance product is going to work for your client, so they can then get emotional about it and understand they can start to accept the product. So just understand that's called a PACE system, P-A-S-E. Practical, action, social, emotional. You're going to meet those types of buyers. They all comes in all different shapes and sizes. Then the last thing that I'll give you today is on the certainty scale. So no one wants to buy from a lukewarm client, from a 1 to a 10. On a certainty scale, if you have a 10s on all this stuff, you'll get a sale every single time with your client. So the first thing is they've got to be 100% certain about you. I mentioned insurance drip, how to give you certainty about you, showing them place of business, showing them, and show your home, by the way. It doesn't need to show your office, your local VP office on the insurance strip, different scenarios, but they need to know that you're licensed. The lanyard could help, right? All those different things. So make sure that they're a 10 on the certainty scale on you, because they buy from you at the end of the day. More than anything else, they're going to buy from you. I promise that's how it works. The next thing is your product. So if you're not certain that this solution's the best for them and it doesn't come across and there's no transfer of enthusiasm and there's no real ability to get going, your product's going to lay flat. So when you're presenting your product, make sure you're a 10 on your product, right? Make sure you have conviction and belief, that persuasion that we talked about in a good way earlier as well. Your company. So you got two companies, right? You got Family First Life. You need to talk about how fast growing. We've done over 150 million in 2018 already. We're one of the fastest growing IMOs in the country. We have thousands of agents out there just like me doing the exact same thing. And then we represent companies like Mutual of Omaha, Americo, etc. that are A-rated, been in business for over 100 years, that have a good track record on their death claim, because the only thing I care about when this is all said and done is that Mary gets a check when you die. So it's important to make sure that you build value in the company you're doing with. So if you don't talk about the company, that's another certainty level, like who am I doing business with, right? So if we get a 10, 10, and 10, are they going to buy? Probably not yet. So you have to have two more things. I talked about 5 things in the sales process as well. The last thing is you have to go over logical certainty first. That's why we do the financial inventory first. So first, a consumer needs to take on a logical solution that this is good for their family. Oh, I see. If my spouse dies, I don't have their income anymore, which is why 52% of life insurance is sold, according to LIMRA. So I know that I need to get this product. Oh, I see. I need to get this product because I don't want to burden my family with burial expense or any of those things like my uncle had for my aunt, or etc. So making sure that you make logical sense with numbers, financial inventory is extremely important. So if they're a 10 on the logical scale, they're going to buy? Probably not, because the last thing that you need is you need to make sure they have emotional certainty. So that is where we talk about future pacing, where you paint picture with words, where they understand how it works, where you can tell live stories. I'll give you an example on that accidental policy. I sold those younger clients the other day. I said, listen, I had a client, this is a real story, by the way, and you can use it. I had a client that pulled over the side of the road to text and drive, okay, with his spouse. Another car was texting and driving. This is in Central Washington. Another car was texting and driving, hit that car, killed them both. Accidental death. On the death certificate, it paid their house off. So I drive around and I see people texting and driving all the time. That's a real thing. Those stories can really get someone emotional. And what happens when they get emotional is now it triggers a buying experience. Now what they do when they get emotional is it logical. So if you didn't cover logical first, then they're not gonna buy. So they'll get emotional. They say, okay, is it logical? Oh, do I believe in you, the product, the company? Give me your driver's license. It's time to do business. Those are the 5 things that you need in every single single house. I want to hopefully you break that down for you and you understand how you can implement it into your business. I appreciate being on the Next Level call. I'm going to go ahead and pass it to our advanced market section, and I'll talk to you later. Thank you.